Hey everyone, I want to thank you to Pro Mindset Podcast today. This is your host, Craig Domann, and I've got a special guest today, Matt Stutzman. Matt, welcome to Pro Mindset today.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so I'm going to give you an introduction, Matt, and I don't think I can give you an introduction that is worthy of everything that you represent. But Matt is an Olympian. He's a medalist. He's known as the Armless Archer. Is that true?
That is true, right here.
Why is that? No arms. For the people that are listening, they can't see it. That you got no arms. Okay,
That's true. That's true. I was when I was a baby, I was born without any arms. I actually was a surprise when I was born without any arms. They thought I was going to have arms for some reason, and it's interesting because I don't know why they didn't do an ultrasound or whatever, but they say it was like 1 in a million, basically, because they couldn't find anything medically wrong with me or, that my mom would have took to cause my arms not to grow. They just decided not to.
wow. Okay, so I can only imagine that when you were young, you didn't know any different until you started doing things when you were older. You just don't know. I mean, if you're born with one leg, you assume everybody is. I'm guessing if you're, 1 or 2 years old. So what was the aha moment that you can first remember where you're like, holy smokes, this is different?
Oh my goodness. I was probably 6 or 7, I think, at the time. And I was walking out. I grew up on a farm. I got 8 brothers and sisters. And I was walking out to go do the chores. I think my chores that day, I had to go feed the cows or milk a cow or something like that. And so I was walking out to go do that. We have an apple orchard. And I remember seeing out of the corner of my eye, my brother, Ben, threw an apple at me from about 20 yards away. And I remember dodging it, and in the same motion, picked up an acorn that was by my foot and throwing it back, and I hit him right between the eyes. And that was like, my goodness, I'm different. I was like, wait, I just threw something with my foot, and my brother threw it with his arms. Like that, well, I am different. Like that's crazy. Like what just happened?
Matt, you're way different. Not only because you were born without arms, but because of the accuracy you have with your feet. So share everybody your story, your Olympic story in archery.
Okay, so before that, I guess halfway through the archery real quick, we did some testing in a program called Superhumans on my brain. We wanted to find out what makes me good at accuracy. And what we've decided was that the part of my brain that controls the foot function on the average human being is the size of a pea. In my brain, it's the size of a softball. It's kind of like my brain just threw out everything about hands that it needed to learn, and it took over that space and saved it for learning how to do stuff with my feet, right? So for me, 2010, I'm a stay-at-home dad, and I can't find a job. Nobody will hire me. I would get people to say, hey, like on paper, everything looks great. Come in for an interview, and I would show up, and they would see I have no arms, and then they would never call me back. And so I was just kind of looking for like someone to give me a chance. And I remember sitting on the couch, and on TV, there's a guy with a bow, like a bow commercial. And he's hunting, he's in the woods, he has a bow, and something clicks in my brain. That is something I have to do. That is something I'm going to do. Because with that, I can control my own end result. There's nobody who can tell me I can't do that. So I remember Googling how to teach an armless man how to shoot a bow.
Okay, brother. What showed up?
Nothing that had to do, nothing that had anything to do with archery and arms.
Okay, so I want to stop you just for a second, Matt, because you just hit on a fascinating concept. The compensation. Sometimes when you're missing something, you're born with more of something else so that you can compensate for that inadequacy or absence of whatever it might be. And in your case, with being born without arms, you have this unbelievable talent with your feet that the average person couldn't even touch. So my question is, why didn't you become a field goal kicker?
So I used to play semi-pro football, and I can make
Oh, you
45,
did?
50-yard field goals. Yeah. Yep. For the Bridge City Knights. And this was actually something I was doing before archery even came along. I even tackled a guy. I kicked off, and the guy ran all the way back, and it was just me or him. And I ran into him full blast, and I knocked him down. And their sidelines cleared their bench, and were all like high-fiving me and giving their guy crap because he got tackled by an armless kicker. It was
Well,
like,
for you, they'd have to eliminate the tripping rule because
yeah,
that's the best way to,
that's
right?
the only way to do it. Just got to trip them up. Yeah. But when it came to
Exactly.
that, like NFL, colleges, all that kind of stuff, I mean, you can be an awesome kicker. There's so many awesome kickers who don't make it into the NFL, right? So,
That's a fact. Okay, let's go back to you're sitting on the couch, you're watching TV, you see this commercial, you get this idea, you Google it, there's nothing there. Now what?
well, I have like $300 to my name. So I gamble all of it on a bow. I go to a local archery range and I said, "Hey, I want to purchase a bow," and they looked at me like I was nuts. They're like, how how are you going to shoot this thing?" And I was like, "I have no idea, but I just want to buy it and I'm going to try it out." Like for me, I think I remember them. They had a practice range, and I said, "No one watch, just everybody leave the room." Like I didn't want people to see what I was about to try because I didn't even
What
know
kind
if
of
it was going to work.
adaptation? How did you do it so that you could hold it steady? I mean, how did that all work out?
The beginning parts were like I had actually would bite the string with my teeth. But this is how I did it. This is in my opinion how powerful my mind is. I googled the best archer in the world. At that time, his name was Darren Christianberry, and I would pretend I was him. You ever remember when you were younger and you wanted to be, let's say you're playing basketball or football or whatever, and there was somebody that stood out in your head, like, and you kind of in your mind were like, I'm him right now, running around football or whatever.
I did it all the time.
Yeah. And I did that with
No, I
this
really
guy.
did. I was just going to say, I grew up on a farm. So when you were watching sports, you put yourself in their bodies, you put yourselves in the situation that they're in. Sometimes I was shooting and they weren't shooting. And I was wanting them to shoot the ball because they were wide open if it was a basketball game. So I've definitely felt that.
Yeah. That feeling that you had right there, that's the feeling I had when I pretended I was this guy named Darren Christianberry. And if he held the bow with his right arm, I held the bow in my right foot. And then I designed this little release thing that went on my right shoulder. And that's how I would hook it to the bow, and I would draw it back, and then I would activate it with my chin. But in my mind, I don't, like, if I look at a picture of myself, I don't see a guy without arms doing it. I see me shooting identical to Darren Christianberry. And by doing that, I was able to teach myself consistency. As far as holding it still, I'm pretty sure like within a week, within 1 week of learning how to shoot, I was stacking 10 arrows touching at 20 yards. Like I could hit, a 1-inch circle at 20 yards within a week. And I didn't understand that at the time that was actually a gift I was given.
Okay. What did people around you tell you when they saw it?
Well, it started off like, there's no way. There's no way you can do it. You have no arms. You can't shoot a bow. There is no way. But listen, do you know how many people have told me in my life I could not do something? I have literally, on multiple occasions, have had this happen. I had a guy give me a motorcycle, the 125 Suzuki, and he said, "If you could, I don't believe that you can fix it." And I was probably 8 or 9 at the time. He said, "If you fix it, you can have it." So I taught myself how to fix it, and I fixed it. And then I taught myself how to ride it. And I jumped on and I rode it. Same way with like there was a guy he gave me a riding lawnmower, and he's like, "There's no way." He says, if you could drive my riding lawnmower, you can have it. I jumped on that thing, started up, and off I went and just drove it home. Like people just have always people just have always been like, there's no way you. They would quickly base their opinions on my looks, not my abilities. I have no arms. There's no way he can shoot a bow. It is impossible for someone to shoot a bow with your feet. It is not hurt. You just can't do it. And I'm like, watch this.
Okay, what is your DNA? What's your brain type, or what makes you unique? Because most of us, honestly, when we're told that we're not enough, we can't do it, we shouldn't be able to do it, we don't. What is it about you that you take on these challenges?
I think it stems from something that happened to me before I remembered. When I was born, and I was born with no arms, my parents asked the doctors, my birth parents asked my doctors, what now? And the doctor told them that it was going to cost millions of dollars to raise me. I would never be able to do anything on my own ever. I would have to have a specialist be with me my entire life. And that was my life. Basically just nothing. And because of that,
Somebody would have to dress you. I'm just
Yeah.
going to guess, Matt. The doc probably told your parents that somebody's going to have to dress you and feed you and do everything for you.
Yep.
And you were probably going to be helpless.
I was going to be helpless my entire life. And
Right.
because of that, they didn't know exactly how to handle it. And I feel like they still handled it in the best possible way. But at 3 months, they put me up for adoption. And I stayed in an orphanage in Kansas until 13 months old, where this family that grew up on a farm in Iowa walked in, and they're like, yep, we want to adopt this kid. He has no arms. He can't pick his nose and wipe boogers on the wall. Let's take him home.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of stems from that, just growing up with everybody always around me, just never believing that I could do stuff, right? And I just remember, my early memories, I was just always out to prove people wrong. And why can't
You
I?
didn't have
And the
any
mindset
choice.
was, I didn't have a choice.
You didn't have a choice, brother.
I refused to be the kid who was helpless. My dad said, one of my earliest memories, I remember sitting on his lap, and he said, son, your arms are never going to grow. You can either choose to sit on the couch right now and cry about it your whole life, or you can go live your life. And I'm like, I'm going to go live my life. And that's what I'm doing.
You were blessed by your adopted parents.
Absolutely. 100% agree with you.
They were able to receive you as you were and challenge you to be your best, regardless of what handicap, deficiency, lack you had.
My parents turned down money. And back then, back in 82 and well, back in those years, their parents was going to give them like $400 or $500 a month. And they had to use that money only on me, and they had to use it to modify their house so I could get around. And my parents were like, no, that's dumb. They refused the money. We're going to teach him how to get through the world, not the world adapt to him, right? Like Matt's going to learn how to figure this out. And I am so forever grateful that they did that, because it really opened my mind to the things I can do and not the things that I can't do.
Amen. Okay, so walk everyone through, you're a week in to doing this archery stuff. You're dang good at it. You've adapted the mechanism and the bow and arrow to your body and to your feet. How did you end up in the Olympics and win a medal?
So I went to my very first tournament ever, and because I didn't have any money, and there was like 12 grand on the line, so I went, and I didn't win. On the way home, I hit 3 deer with my only card at the same time. They were like all lined up perfectly. It was not on purpose. It just, I was like, oh my goodness, seriously right now? an hour later, I had a guy call me and he goes, "Hey, we want to help you. We saw what you're doing. We want to help you. Here's a new bow. Like, we can get you gear. Let's get you the good stuff." And at that time, I didn't have anything, so I'm like, I like free stuff, so of course, I'll take it. This to me was this is to me though the most important parts of my story. I take this bow, and it's it's the newest technology. It's the most amazing bow at the time, and I show my buddy. And my buddy looks in my eyeball and says, "Matt, the reason why they sponsor you is because you have no arms and you draw attention to their product. It's not because you're good." And the reality was, yeah, I was hitting bullseyes all the time, but I mean, I didn't win the tournament, right? So I really wasn't that good. And that was the day I made the decision. That would have been January 11th, 2012. January 11th, 2011 is when I made the decision that I want to be known as the best archer in the world, followed by the statement, "Did you know he does it with no arms?" And the very next day, 8 hours a day, from that point till now, 8 hours a day in a chair, shooting and learning and developing and figuring things out. And then I made my first games in 2012, which is crazy because that was only a year later. And at the games, I missed the world record. I qualified number 1 even at the games and missed the world record by like 5 or 6 points. My first ever international event in games.
Okay, what's going through your mind, Matt? Where were your Olympics at?
That was London.
London? Okay, so you're in London, England. And you're from Kansas or Iowa, one or the other. And you just started working on this less than 16 months before the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
When you are showing up, let's say for the first competition at the Olympics, it's your day. You're living in the Olympic Village. It's your day. You're waking up. You got to have your game face on. It's like when you played football and other sports you played. What was going through your mind to allow you to medal when most people in that situation just don't want to mess up?
It's hard to explain, so I'll try my best to explain it. I went from a guy that for the first half of his life, nobody believed that I could do anything. It was really tough to find jobs. Like, just getting people to believe that I could do something was incredibly difficult. And then here I am representing something bigger than me. Here I am representing the town I live in, my family, the United States of America, on the largest stage in the world. And for me, it wasn't like, oh, I better perform. For me, it was, I made it. I did it. Like, I wasn't thinking about performing well. I was thinking about the people who said I couldn't be anybody someday. So my mind I didn't have that pressure. Like, I didn't have all that pressure everybody else had. I wasn't putting pressure on myself to be like, oh, I got to win. If I miss, I'm not going to win. It was, haha, whole world, watch this whole event take place. Like, just watch me out here doing my thing. And then that's where it was at for me.
Yeah, I'm going to restate some of that because that's powerful. And understandably so. People are doubting you. People didn't believe in you. People were looking for ways to give you excuses, give you crutches, give you handicap benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't want to hire you because you weren't enough either.
Yep.
And so from an identity standpoint, you really reflected your identity. Your identity changed. On 1/11/11, your identity, you shifted.
Yep.
And you were on a mission. And when you got to the Olympics, a lot of times when you are doing something and representing something that's bigger than yourself, It does take off the pressure.
Yep.
And when you have the attitude of already did it, you don't have to do it. You just have to be.
Yep.
And when you were in London, you were being it more than doing it.
It felt amazing. I like to tell people it was kind of like what I call my Michael Jordan moment. And what I mean by that is did I want to be Michael Jordan? No. But did I, watching him growing up and stuff like that, I understood what kind of ball player he was and his athletics. But it was him out proving to the world that he could do that, right? Like that's what it was about for me. And that was kind of like me, right, at that moment, proving to the world that, hey, I have no arms. And I'm right now competing against 65 of the best archers from around the world, and they all have arms. And I'm beating them, like I'm doing it. And it was kind of like, haha, let's go.
How did people treat you post-Olympics compared to pre-Olympics?
And I remember the next day after I won and podiumed, I remember the next day I was on the front of Wall Street Journal. Armless man podiums in archery at the Olympics. And I was like, what is happening right now? When I got home, my town, the same people who would not give me a chance and hire me threw a parade and the whole town showed up. And it was kind of the irony of it. Because then all those people that were like, hey, Matt, we can't hire you. You have no arm. Sorry. We're like, hey, come back and apply again. If you want a job, like, look. And I was like, wait a minute. It took me to get to this level for you to trust that I can do the job. Like it was a completely surreal, different. It was kind of like a mixed emotions because you were in a town that they didn't believe in you. And now everybody were like, I ended up getting an award in Iowa on like September 26th or whatever is Matt Stutzman Day. So I was now I have a day in Iowa and things like that. And it just was crazy to see how everybody switched and flopped so easily. And for me, I think it was like a good thing because it kind of opened my eyes to the world can still change for the better. We can still teach people that just because you have no arms that they can't do things, or just because they have somewhat of a disability that they still can't do the work of everybody else. They still can prove that they can be part of this world.
There's in my brain, I'm seeing that, you were adopted and then you had this adaptation, your parents had to decide if they were going to change their home. And then you had to, you had this moment, Matt, you've probably had this moment multiple times in your life where you had to decide, are you going to buy in to who you believe you are? Or are you going to buy into what other people are telling you are?
Yeah.
That's a watershed moment for a lot of people, and especially for people in your situation where it's like in your face every day. It affects your livelihood. It affects how people look at you when you go to the grocery store. It affects you everywhere you go. Most people, their weakness or whatever you want to call it is hidden. It's invisible. Yours is very visible. So it's been in your face your whole life.
Yep.
But it doesn't, you've flipped it.
Yeah. One of the things that I look at on why, if you look at just over the course of my archery career and all the matches that I've shot in front of live audiences in the finals where medals are at stake, I think in the course of 13 years, I think I've only lost once. So that's a pretty good win percentile. And this is how I think about it. My whole life, I've had people say you can't do that, right? There's no way. My whole life, I've had people look at me, make fun of me, like in schools and things like that, right? I always had the attention that I didn't want. If I go out to eat at a restaurant, I put my foot on the table to hold my fork, the whole entire restaurant watches me eat. You know what I mean? And at an early age, I was able to just block those people out and not care what they think and just do me. So when I get into those moments like the games, and when I get in those high pressure situations where it's in front of 10,000 people and it's on TV, for me, it's like eating at a restaurant. For my opponent who's never been in that situation before, it's foreign to them. And now they have all these people watching them. And now what do? They can't control their heart rates. They can't control anything. And they don't do as well. And I believe that that's why I was able to be successful in those situations more than anyone else.
No, I can see it. I can see it. You were practicing every second of every day that you were out in the public for those moments, those big moments.
Yeah.
You were with all the eyeballs on you in a restaurant, and I'm sure when you were 14 and 18 and 22, that was very uncomfortable, and you had to go somewhere in your mind to find comfort to block them out.
Yep.
And that paid dividends for you, and it still does in every competition you do.
Yep. No, everything that I do now, whether it's archery or racing, because it's the same head-to-head stuff, I get in that zone and I'm so focused, I don't know that anybody else is around. When I make a shot on a bullseye in those pressure situations, it literally, like I have a coach. In those moments, you get 30 seconds to shoot one arrow, like in like the finals matches. And during that time, he'll give me a countdown, like at 10-second warning, and then he'll go 5, 4, 3, 2, because you have to get the arrow off before it hits 0. And there's more times than I can count. I'll hear him get to 5. I'll hear him go 5, 4, and then it seems like hours before I hear 3, and then hours before I hear him say 2, and I still get the shot off. I still hit a bullseye. Like I don't know. Time just slows way down for me in those moments. Like it just the level of focus because of what I've been through in my life that has taught me how to do that, I guess. And not worry
Matt,
about anything.
you may not be able to.
Go ahead.
Matt, can you hear me?
Yep.
You may not be able to answer this question, but how does time slow down when you're in the zone? What's going on in your mind? What is like, are you at peace? Are you maximum belief in yourself? Are you confident about what you do? What is going on in that zone?
It's kind of all of that. I'm very confident in what I am, who I am as a person. Like I'm living my dream. I'm living my life how I wanted to live it. It took me a lot longer to get there, but I am doing that now. And I'm also completely at peace. Like when I'm in that moment, nothing can change anything. I have full control over everything that happens, and nobody can tell me you have to go shoot a 9 right now. No, I don't have to listen to any of that stuff. I have full control of the outcome. And it's an unbelievable, crazy, awesome experience to have that kind of mind power to believe in yourself that much.
How does that show up on Monday mornings? How does that show up with your kids? I understand you have 5 boys. How does it show up in your marriage? How does it show up in other things you do?
Honestly, for me, it's, there's a lot of people that talk the talk. For me, I believe in showing, how do I put it? I believe in showing by example besides just talking about it. So if dad with no arms say, hey, I'm going to go do this, he's going to do it. I want my boys to see like dad had it worse than everyone else in the family and he has no arms and everybody said you can't do this and look at what he's doing. And now look, it motivates them to be like, okay, you know what, maybe I can do this. And it makes them, better men. And like, that's ultimately, what I hope that translates into a Monday with my kids.
How do you see your oldest is 21? You said your youngest is 12. How does it show up? How do you see you in your boys because of your mindset?
They all have unique personalities. I will tell you that they're all competitive. Like I don't know where they got that from. They all have strong personalities. They're all very, for the most part, mentally strong, from what I can tell. Like, they are not afraid to try things. For the most part, not afraid to try things. They're willing to get their hands dirty. They're willing to kind of upstage dad a little bit if they can. And I think that's just something that's been passed down. Hopefully, a little bit of DNA, but mainly just because of who was able to show them who I was as a person.
That's awesome. That's the best gift you can give your kid.
I agree.
Okay, let's talk about potentially your last Olympics is
Mhm.
this year. And have you already done the Olympic trials?
I've been waiting for this. Can I tell you a story? That hopefully,
Absolutely.
okay. I've been having some hip issues the last couple of years just because of how I shoot. And basically, the doctors have said just because overusage of the hip is the term for it. So if you think about it, a bodybuilder works out legs one day and then arms the next, right? Because he alternates and gives the legs time to heal. I use my legs for everything every single day. Eating, brushing my teeth, shooting my bow, it doesn't matter. Even like they're just always in use. And so they're just kind of tired-ish already at 41. So because of that, I had to make a decision on how I was going to preserve myself for this trials process. And here's the story. And it's crazy. So our first leg of trials, haha, no pun intended. Leg one of trials was in April. And this specific games, only two Americans are going to go. So everybody can show up on stage one, and after stage one, they cut it down to 16, right? After stage one, I practiced a little bit, maybe like 2 hours leading up to stage one. That was it. And I ended up in 7th place. And I remember going home. My hip was a little sore, things like that. I remember going home and I never took the bow out of the box. I left it in its case. And all I did was focus on mental training for a month, because stage 2 was a month later in May. Yeah, May 7th, 6th, and 7th, 7th, 8th. So for 1 month, I didn't touch my bow and did mental training 2 hours a day, visualizations, perfect shot, what it feels like, pretending I'm in that location. I go into stage 2 of trials, and it's the first time I had shot my bow in a month. And my first shot for score was a bullseye. And then I just rolled everybody. Won stage 2, went into stage 3, won stage 3, didn't have a single losing match. We shot 300 and some arrows for score, didn't lose to anybody. Rolled into what we call round robins and eliminations, won every single thing. My last arrow of trials, I was tied with a guy named KJ, and we had to do a 1 arrow shoot off. And literally the second I knew, we had 5 minutes before that shot happens. Literally the second I knew we had a 1 arrow shoot off, I had already told myself, I'm going to aim 9 o'clock, 9. Like something, that's where I'm aiming. 5 minutes later, when it's time to make the shot happen, I aimed at 9 o'clock, 9, shot, hit it X. He aimed in the middle, and the wind pushes the arrow out. He shot a 9 at 3 o'clock, and I go undefeated. And I go from 7th all the way up into the top 2 and earn my spot to go represent America at another games. If I were to tell people that I didn't shoot my bow for it, basically, let's just go back a little bit. In the last 6 months leading up to trials, I've shot my bow maybe a total of 7 hours in the last 6 months. But I focus on mental training. Nobody would believe me. The only people that believe me is my family, because they're here. They know what I've done. Crazy, huh?
No, I love visualization. I think it's one of the most powerful tools a lot of people use it, but they don't like use it to the maximum, capability.
Yeah.
They visualize themselves like the night before, but they don't, I think, and I'm going to ask you to go into more detail on your visualization because, if you're visualizing yourself just shooting, that's cool. But what if you visualize yourself and you know what you're wearing, you know who your competition is, you know your environment, you know what you're going to eat before you go. You have emotion, you tie your visualization to emotion like, hey, I'm a badass. I don't need to practice. I've practiced so many hours. I've still practiced more than these guys. So I'm not going to feel guilty for not practicing physically because I'm practicing mentally. And by practicing mentally, I'm giving my hips, especially your shooting hip, you're giving yourself a chance to rest and heal.
Yep.
So share with us your secret to visualization. What did it look like? Were you sitting in a chair? Were you laying down? Were you doing it when you were driving? How did this go on?
So in archery, we don't have an off season. Like you can literally be shooting a major tournament every month, 12 months a year. So doing that for the last 13 years, like I needed a break, like even just probably mentally, we're trying to hit a target at 50 meters away and it's a 3-inch circle. Like it takes a lot of mental strength to do that. Right. So for me, I had to convince myself, this is how deep I went. I had to convince myself that no matter what happened at this event, I was going to be okay. And when I say that I had to convince myself, I had to convince myself mentally that I figured I only have so much archery shots that I can be solid and good enough to win left on my hip. I only have so many. So I have to tell my brain that these 300 shots I'm about to do this weekend are probably going to be my last one on U.S. soil. So everything must count. I convinced myself to a point where I had to sell the whole thing to my brain. So everybody shows up to these events with multiple bows because if you have an equipment malfunction, they don't give you time to fix it. So in this scenario, and I'll talk about that too if you want to know a little bit more. There was a tournament, World Championships, Dubai, 2022. I'm in qualification in Dubai and my release breaks. And during that process, I miss shooting 8 arrows and I get 8 zeros and go from 4th place to last place. And I came back and won the whole entire event. That's unheard. That's never been done before. And what I had to do, so that's one of the reasons why people take extra equipment, right? So what I had to do for trials, I was the only one that showed up with 1 bow, 1 release. And the reason why I did that is because I believed there's a saying out there, fear the guy with 1 bow. He knows it inside and out. But here's why I only wanted 1 bow and 1 release. I saw this.
Hey, hold on, Matt. Fear the guy with no hands and no arms.
That's true too. That's true.
Okay.
Fear the guy who has a good mindset. He's really the guy. Fear the guy who has that mindset power. So what you see at events is if someone is shooting bad, they automatically blame their equipment. It's like, I don't know why, but they do. They're like, oh, well, this bow doesn't shoot as good as my other one. So what do? They swap out bows. The reality is that it's not the bow, it's the mindset. Okay? 9 times out of 10, it's always the mindset. So for me, they're like, what if something breaks? And I'm like, it's not going to break. What if you have an equipment malfunction? I'm not going to have an equipment malfunction. Like I had to believe that mentally. So in my mental prep, I was going through that daily. I'm not going to have equipment malfunction. This bow's going to shoot amazing. This bow's going to help me win trials. Okay? Like I had to talk like that in my head. We stage what we wear. So like I knew Jessica and I, she goes down with me to these events because she also helps pull arrows. we wear black. We wore black both days, and people are like, "Why are you wearing black? It's in Florida. It's really hot." I'm like, "Hey, we're at a funeral." You know what I mean? Like that was our
No doubt.
mindset. Like that was our mindset. You know, we were about to make sure, you know, that's how confident I was. And I did the mental tricks where convincing myself it was okay no matter what happens, is because that automatically takes the pressure off of you, right? Because now you're back in the London scenario where you're just there shooting and proving, you know, I'm here to enjoy the show, versus thinking I gotta win. Because when you start thinking that, you fall apart like pretty fast. So convincing myself that it was okay if I lost, convincing myself that I wasn't going to have any equipment malfunctions, convincing myself mentally that this is how the shot works, this is the wind, this is what the grass smells like this is where my chair placement's going to be, this is where Jessica's at. After I shoot, I'm going to come off the line and I'm going to talk to Jessica. This is huge. This is our game plan. After I shoot my 6 arrows, everybody that I'm shooting against, they stay on the line, contemplating what just happened. I come off the line and I go under the tent where Jessica is, and I start talking to her about what I want for lunch. I start talking to her about things that have nothing to do with archery, because it resets the brain. Those guys on the line are like, "Oh man, I just shot an 8 on that last shot." And now they're sitting there contemplating like, "Oh my goodness, now what? Like, how do I fix an 8? I don't know." Why? I don't do that. I talk about racing or football, like Caitlin Clark. Did you see she killed it? She shot like 30 points the other day. Like anything but what I'm there to do, because it tells my brain, like it resets my brain. So when I get back on the line, I'm still fresh and I can focus again. And that's the mental training I did. That's what we prepared for.
Okay, so let me challenge you before you go to Paris. Are you going to do the same thing?
No.
What's your game plan?
I do have a game plan. I do know for Paris, I will have to shoot a little bit more. However, I will take 2 bows to Paris, just because in Tokyo, when I got there, one was broken. On the flight over, it got broken. And so I'm just going to take 2 just for that. But once I get out a bow, if it's perfect and flying good, I'm never going to touch the other one. Like I'm not even going to put it up together. I'm just going to leave it there. But my game plan is very similar. So a year ago, I went to Paris and I met up with the U.S. Olympic Committee and the guy who actually was in charge of the archery venue. And we spent a day with him at the archery venue. So I already know where the target's going to be. I already know where I'm going to be shooting from. I've stood on that location. I've stood down where the target's going to be. I spent an hour smelling and just like smelling the air and the grass and the wind, learning how the wind was going to be. And I've actually been thinking about that moment since last year. So I'm doing the same exact things. It's just that I'm not, I'm just going to shoot just a little bit more, like, you know, maybe 2 hours twice a week or something like that. Because the archery level skill is there, right? Like that never went away. It's the mental that is going to help you become be successful at it or not. And then as far as convincing myself that it's okay no matter what happens, I'm already well on my way. Because this is my 4th games, this is the first year my kids get to go. They've never been to a games before. So my family's going to go. And so for me, this game specifically is about making memories, because memories last a lot longer than anything else. So instead of focusing on winning and like putting all that pressure of I better like perform my best or else, I'm focusing on my family and those memories and them watching me and things like that. And then after that, whatever happens, happens. Because I've learned that that's when I perform my best, is when I have those little things and the reasons why I'm there. And it's not always about winning. Most of the events that I've won have stemmed from not being like, I'm going to win. Because I know I'm already capable of winning. Right. So that's my game plan. My toes
Okay.
are crossed. Hope it's a
All right,
good
Matt.
one.
Brother, I am not messing with you. All right. I'm not messing with you because you probably hit me between the eyes. The bottom line, though, is I want to share with you a concept in pro mindset that you're already doing. And what it is pro mindset. I'm going to break it down for you really quick. It's your story. Okay. It's your standards and it's your stage. And your story is who you are, not what you do. And it's being connected to your purpose, and it's detaching from everything everybody's ever told you you were. It's forgiving yourself and giving yourself grace for all your failures, all your dumb things, all your disappointments, all your rejections, all those people at some point in your life that told you, hey man, you were not enough. Or they didn't tell you, they just didn't call you back, which is effectively the same thing. And then your standards have to be higher than everybody else's, because if your standards are higher than everybody else's and your visualization practice is higher and more in depth probably than anybody else, and that's what carried you through the trials. So you already got that, but it's reconnecting with your standard, because you gotta rely upon your standard. And part of your standard is your purpose, and your purpose is not centered on winning. The bullseye is not winning.
Yeah.
The bullseye for most people is just to do your best.
Right.
Let's say you do your best and you still don't win. Can you do better than your best?
No.
Can't.
I mean, yes, you can and you can't, but yes. I see exactly what you're saying, and you're 100% correct.
Okay.
In fact, go ahead.
No, you go.
I feel like this is something to tell you real quick, and then I want you to keep going. But right now at this next games, there will be maybe 4 to 5 other armless people shooting that I've helped get there, and they're also shooting.
Oh my goodness!
Yep, and we're also shooting at an elite level. And here's what I teach them: the number 1 ranked female archer in the world right now is a girl from India who's 17 who has no arms, and at the last event we were at, she finished 5th, I think, but she shot a personal best. And she was that kind of bummed. And I was like, why are you bummed? You just shot the best you've ever shot. You should be celebrating the fact that you just shot the highest score you've ever shot in your life. You shouldn't be focused on the fact that you didn't win. And she's like, yeah. So I said, I gave her some tips on some training. The next 3 events, she goes out and rolls everybody, and she earns her spot to go to Paris. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's my gold medal right there, man. I'm just telling you, those are my gold medals. Oh,
goodness. You're going to win multiple gold medals in Paris. One that you're going to put around your neck, and some that somebody else is going to put around their neck. Okay, so I'm going to continue. So when you do your best and it's not good enough to win, then you got to identify what's the gap between where you're at and where you need to be. So if you are your best, you can be on the podium and you can be in the gold medal position.
Yep.
That gap is not an insecurity. That gap is not a deficiency. That gap becomes your game plan. Okay? It becomes your process. It's what you practice. Then when you show up on stage, which you've been on stage your whole life, every day of your life, every day you're in public, you're on stage. And we talked about that already, which most people are only on stage when they're in their competition. Yep. And there's other people there. Even if it's a competition and nobody's around, maybe they don't feel the pressure. But man, when they know that the whole world's watching and there's millions of people watching on TV and it's a big deal like the Olympics, they feel differently. So what I share with people is you have to create a performance bubble.
Yeah.
And when you create a performance bubble, everything that's for you gets to come in. Everything that's not for you gets to stay out, and you get to decide where that boundary is. Oh. And so, for example, with you, the biggest challenge you're going to have this year is maybe letting too much in because you got your kids and everybody there. But during the competition, you have to create your bubble again. And you have to reset between reps. But it's like, hey, the hours and hours of practice you put in over your career knowing that this is going to be your last competition as a competitor in archery, you do want to do your best, but you don't want to bring in stuff that doesn't serve you now.
Right.
Your visualization gets to come in. Your practice gets to come in. Even the soul level feeling you get from helping other people like you do what you're doing, that can come in because that serves you.
Yeah.
Outcomes, results, what people might say, what sponsors might do, doesn't matter. All that stuff is on the outside. And then I think the trick is in the competition. Most people create a performance bubble and don't even know they have one, but they do it. But I'm challenging you to do it intentionally.
Yeah.
And you should do it multiple times. You should do it when you visualize what's going to be in it, what's not going to be in it.
Right.
And then when you get there, you have to have an escape hatch because you're going to have thoughts during the competition that don't serve you.
Yeah.
And instead of like going, this is BS, why am I thinking this now? I never thought this before. No. Hey, that's cool. You want to think that's good. Hey, you can just leave. And in a nanosecond, you could be, your coach could be saying 10, 9, and that thought comes in. And as fast as it comes in, it goes out faster. So it doesn't even affect you because you are human and you're going to have those thoughts because that's just the way it works.
You can't get rid of that.
So that's basically it. That's what Pro Mindset's about is, being very intentional about your story, really elevating your standards and showing up and showing out on stage by creating a performance bubble that allows you to be in control of who you are and what you do without being affected by the circumstances, the audience, the media, the competition, or the outcomes.
Yep. And when you do that properly, you get the result you're looking for.
You probably get the result you deserve. Like if you put in the time and you put in the mental time and the physical time, you're going to get very close to your personal best, whatever that is.
That's powerful, man. That is super powerful. The power of the mind. I think a lot of people don't understand how that is probably one of the most important things about everything you do in your life. Just as simple as saying, guess what? Today I get to be on a podcast with Pro Mindset. Not I have to. Just that little switch of those words, huge difference maker on how you look at the day.
We make millions, I think 35,000 decisions a day.
Wow.
And because of your handicap and because of being born without arms, you probably had to make 70,000. Right? Because you're in school, first day of school, walking down the hall, and you're getting all this stimuli that your buddy is not getting.
Yeah.
That helps you in that probably didn't feel good at the time, but it's paying dividends for everything that you do now because of who you become because of that stuff.
Yeah. That's one of the ways that I look at it is I don't have any grudges. I don't have any ill thoughts towards my birth parents, right? Everything that has happened in my life, no matter what it is gone. I'm completely fine with where I'm at. But those moments have taught me a lot of lessons that I've learned from and made me who I am today, really.
Well, it's probably fair to say that if you had arms, you probably would have never gone to the Olympics.
Nope. I get asked all the time, hey, Matt, would you do this again? Would you choose, if you could choose, would you choose to have no arms? And my answer is always, yeah. I wouldn't change anything. Maybe make myself a little taller, but I wouldn't change nothing. I love my life. I love who I have become. I love my family. Like nothing would change. This is me every single time. Even if you were to tell me you're not gonna, make it to the games, but would you still choose to have no arms? And I always say, if I could have the same mindset that I have, like keep me and my personality and my mindset who we are now, and take away the fact that I never make it to a game, still give me that, because I still believe that without the games, I would have eventually found the thing that I was looking for, and then I still would have been at peace, and I still would have been exactly who I thought I was going to be.
Well, all of us are created and perfectly imperfect. It's just that all of us have different imperfections. Some of them are visible, most of them are invisible. Every one of us has no arms. It just looks different than yours.
Yeah. It's the power of the mind.
Power of the mind.
I want to tell you a brief story about what one of the ways I wanted to feel like one of the ways that I trained so I could feel the adrenaline when I was at home, because your body produces adrenaline when you're in pressure situations. So one of the ways I would train is I would jump out of planes, and then when I would land close to the target, and when that adrenaline is still pumping through my system, I would shoot until the adrenaline would wear off so I could learn how to control it. And then I would do it again.
That is amazing. You would jump
Yeah.
out of airplanes to create the same physiological adrenaline high you get in competition so that you can learn to control that adrenaline.
Yep.
Okay. We're almost at an hour, and I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I want to ask you, transitioning from archery to racing, share with the audience the next championship you're going to win.
I love it. And I'm already picturing a Wally, right? So I've always loved cars and bows. The reason why I love both of them is that the bow doesn't care who shoots it. It just wants to be shot. The car, I'm getting into drag racing. I've been drag racing for a long time, but we're at a high level now. Racing a pro mod chassis car, going around racing for $100,000. Later this year, we're going to race for $1 million. In the next year to 2 years tops, hopefully we'll be running the full NHRA circuit in top sportsman class. I work on the car. I build the car. I drive the car. I don't have a big, huge pit crew. It's just me and my family. And that is the next step of my life. Driving race cars really fast with my feet.
So what is top end speed on in drag racing today?
We're limited right now to 225 miles per hour. And you get there in about 6.1 to 6.3 seconds. 0 to 60 time is
adrenaline junkie, man.
I've been called that before.
You are. That is crazy.
A lot of people say, I don't understand. You're going from racing, from bows to racing. Bows is a very much, this is what they say. Bows are, you have to shoot in a zen place of mind, like very relaxed and calm and stuff like that. But this is what I tell people. The only time you shoot relaxed and calm is if you're in your backyard practicing. When you are on the line and your next arrow is going to win $100,000 and there's 4 other guys trying to get that $100,000, you have adrenaline. You got you got stuff going on, right? Yeah. So it's the person who can control that the best that will usually ultimately at the end of the day win it. Their mindset and the adrenaline are going to, whoever can control that the best. So they're a lot similar than people think.
All right, I just need to know, what are the 2 or 3 most important attributes for being a drag car racer? Is it reaction time? I mean, what is it? I mean, what? Because once you hit, I mean, I've been on the starting line in Indy at a NHRA race. It's like, it'll blow you away. I don't think there's any, I mean, you're trying to keep it on the track. So maybe driving is part of it too. But what are the 2 or 3 things you got to have to be in that world? Be successful in that world?
Yeah. All the things that have made me successful in archery, they actually are identical when it comes to that. When you're on the line, remember I talked about how time slows down?
Yes.
And then you shoot a shot and it hits a 10. Once you release that arrow, you can never have it back. It will never, ever, ever come back, right? Like, that is what it is. It is what it scores. Drag racing is the same. When it's won on the lights, it's run on reaction time. And it's the same exact moment, right? Once you let off that button, you can never get back that reaction time. It is what it is, and that's what it runs. I have the ability to kind of slow stuff down. I'm so in the zone, when I see my light come on when it needs to be, I can let off the button and get that reaction time that I'm needing. Because at this level, it usually comes down to reaction time. And I've had a whole lifetime of practice when it comes to the archery world, and that literally all translates into the same exact mental state when you're on the line. The only difference is when you shoot a 10, you can be like, yeah, but when you let off a button, the car takes off and you go, rah, and you get thrown in your seat and you hit all those G's, right? That's the only difference, but it's still identical when it comes to the mindset.
What do you do? What is your mental rehearsal for speeding up your reaction time, even though you're slowing down time? I mean, it's almost a trick on words. When it slows down, it's easier to have faster reaction time.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you practice before a race, slowing it down so you can be faster?
I actually do a lot of practice. I'll actually sit in the car. I know it sounds crazy. I'll sit in the car and I have the car set up that I can practice in the car without it running. So you can put on your helmet and the whole 9 yards, and you sit in the car and you just practice working on the reaction time. As far as the adrenaline thing, this sounds I needed to put pressure on myself. So what I did is I practiced my reaction time in my car for like 20 minutes. And then I parked my car with a target behind there at 100 yards. This race car that, costs lots and lots and lots of money. And then I open up my house and I go on the other side of my house and I shoot an arrow from 100 yards away. And then the arrow goes through my house, through the back door, out the front door, travels 100 yards, goes through the little window of my race car, the driver's side, out the passenger side, and then I have a balloon that has my Olympic medals wrapped around it. And then I hit the balloon, and I don't ruin the house, I don't ruin the car, and I don't ruin the Olympic medals from 100 yards. And then it gives me pressure. It gives me like a pressure high. Like if I mess up, I'm hurting things that I shouldn't be hurting. But it makes me make the shot. It makes me make that shot count. Then at that point, I did it like twice. And then I was like, okay. And then I got back in the car. So now I have a little bit of like excitement going on, right? And then I would practice reaction times again to see what that's like and if I could slow things down again. You should jump out of airplanes again.
Hey, right? Land on the
Don't put it past me. I might have to do that.
You know what? You could be the first guy at an NHRA race to parachute in before you jump in the car to run your race.
Oh, now we're talking. You know how cool okay. If you see a video about this sometime in the next couple of years, you're going to know, because that would be awesome. That would be incredible.
Oh my God.
I would do that.
That would be incredible.
I would do that.
That would be crazy.
Yeah.
That would be crazy.
I probably had the best reaction I've ever had.
You probably would. Hey, Matt, I want to thank you for being on Pro Mindset today. Most importantly, I want to thank you for adopting this championship mindset of, I can do anything I set my mind to, regardless of what anybody says, regardless of what you look like, regardless of what challenges you might have. You're just one of those guys that finds a way. And that's an unbelievable gift and trait to have.
I believe deep down that when I talk about being gifted, that was my gift, was having that ability and that mindset and having that moment where my parents put me up for adoption and being adopted by the parents who did adopt me to kind of help push that along to grow me to where I'm at. I like to tell people I'm probably one of the most luckiest guys in the world.
That is awesome. Good luck in Paris this summer.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a awesome hour. Like, I would do it again. If you want to do a follow-up one after the games, count me in. This has been amazing.
Heck
Thank you
yeah,
so
man.
much.
I want to do one after you get back from Paris. I want to find out. Well, number one, I'm going to be watching you. Number two, I want to see, we got to take the attitude that you're going to win a gold.
Yep.
How did you do it? What adversity did you face? What challenges did you have? What wrinkles what was the joy from having your family there? And what was the challenge of having your family there? Because it's going to be both.
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
Let's talk later.
Hang on. You got it. Hang on just for a second.